Welcome to the Gab Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak, and we are live at 2026 Book Camp. In light of Mother's Day today and World Awareness Infertility Month in June, it's our honor and special privilege to welcome international multi-award winning Australian author Stephanie Boag to discuss her Sticky Pineapple series, two amazing books that are tools for navigating the IVF for adults and children. Sticky Pineapple and the Little Precious Gems, How I Came Into This World, earned a distinguished favorite in 2025 New York City Big Book Award in the Children's Educational category. The adult Sticky title, Pineapple and a Powerful Mind Waiting for a Heartbeat, it is a 2025 New York City Big Book Award winner in pregnancy and childbirth. Stephanie grew up on a farm in Hamilton, Australia. Her dad ran a woolen mill, and her mom was a primary school teacher and vice principal. She became interested in journalism when she was 15 years old during a year-long exchange program in Canada, where she worked at a newspaper. Stephanie studied journalism and public relations and went on to earn her MBA. Years later, while living abroad in the UK, she worked as a radio broadcaster for the BBC, and then she traveled the world honing her craft. She met her husband, Nathaniel, in the UK, and they were married in Vietnam. So exciting. Stephanie traveled to boot camp from Australia, where she lives with her husband, Nathaniel, and her two beautiful miracles, 6-year-old Alice and 4-year-old Ruby. Congratulations, Stephanie, and welcome to the Gab Talks. It's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much, and it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. So before we get started, happy Mother's Day. It's a little early, and thank you so much for sharing your IVF story. It's so courageous. I'd like our listeners and viewers to hear a little bit more about you. You were 37 years old when you first started this journey. So tell us your story.
Yeah. Like every young married couple, we just had assumed that everything would be pretty straightforward. So after our wedding in Vietnam, at the age of 35, we started trying to get pregnant naturally. After a couple of years, it became pretty clear that nothing was happening and we needed some assisted, supported help. So we got referred to a major infertility clinic in Melbourne, Australia.
Okay.
And that set off a very long journey, 10 cycles of IVF over a number of years before we were finally successful in having, our first and second child.
Amazing IVF. Amazing story. It really is. So, the children's book, your children's title, Sticky Pineapple and the Little Precious Gems. I understand your first child, Alice, was an inspiration. Tell us about that and tell us why it's so significant.
Yeah, so like every parent, I was reading a bedtime story to Alice, and I was reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And
one of our favorites in my family.
Exactly, yeah. And an all-time favorite for everybody. And during the course of reading that story to her at bedtime, she said, "Mummy, how did I come into this world?" And so I took a pause and a deep breath, and I thought, I'm just actually going to tell her the truth in a very creative and imaginary way. And so she was the inspiration behind the story, Sticky Pineapple and the Little Precious Gems, How I Came Into This World.
I love that. So how did Alice react when you told her? Did it change how she felt about how she came into this world? It wasn't a story that she hears probably from other friends. This was really unique. Did it change anything about it?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, her first reaction was, "I just love that you ate sticky pineapple, Mum."
We're gonna get to the sticky pineapple. Now, do you think it's important for parents to share that, almost as if they would with an adopted family? Do you think it's important that parents are really forthcoming about it? And do you think there's a certain age when they should be telling kids about it?
I think it's everyone's own personal judgment on that. But the reason why I was inspired to write my books is to make it okay to talk about fertility and IVF with friends, family, and children, as well as colleagues. And to be honest, children are just so curious and engaged and non-threatening, and I just love it.
And why not be honest with it? Why not be honest about it?
Yeah.
So you're wearing a pineapple on your shirt.
Yes.
Sticky pineapple, it's so catchy. I love it. And I'm with Alice. I think it's fantastic. But there's something behind that.
Yes. So, sticky pineapple as a theme, it's actually a symbolism of women going through infertility and IVF. And so often when you turn up to clinics at embryo transfer, you might see women wearing a pineapple symbol.
Okay.
And what it symbolizes, and this is written up in the New York Times many years ago, but what it symbolizes is the crown of their head, like the pineapple, and encouraging and reminding women to stand tall and be proud and resilient for everything that they're navigating personally.
That's beautiful. And you did also say that if you eat pineapple when you're pregnant or when you're trying to become pregnant, it also helps you.
Yeah, fertility, not scientifically proven, but there is a theory, and I subscribe to it as well. That
And you ate a lot of pineapple when you were pregnant.
the resin of the pineapple helps with embryo transfer and the stickiness. And so it's really just, again, about positive health and mind and body and getting yourself in the best possible state that you can be. And, if eating a bit of pineapple is something that helps you on that journey that I had, why not try?
So let's talk about your adult title, Sticky Pineapple and a Powerful Mind, Waiting for a Heartbeat. It really is, it details your journey from a self-help book, actually, that navigates your journey and others' journey. You outline all the key steps of the process from hormonal injections to embryo transfer. What do you hope that the book offers women and men, we don't want to forget about the men out there who are struggling with infertility? What was your goal?
So my goal of writing the book was to help millions of others that have or are navigating infertility and IVF. There's over 40 million people around the world that are undertaking.
Yeah, that's
So it's a significant number of people, and it's growing every day. And so for people embarking on this process, it's no small mere feat. And as you talked about before, not many people talk about it.
Yeah, sure, about why.
The stigma, the taboo.
Why is there a stigma that does it?
Just people not still feeling afraid, and
Is it because it's not natural? Is that what people I think? Okay, interesting.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. And what would other people think that you weren't able to get pregnant naturally, and what's wrong with you? And you're constantly asking those same questions of yourself.
Yeah.
And even in my own personal situation, or our personal situation, we had what was called unexplained infertility, which was there was no rhyme or reason coming back on the tests as to why we wouldn't be able to get pregnant.
Yes, they said you kept going back and back to the doctors and they couldn't find anything. And then after 9 tries, Alice came.
Yeah, that's right. So I had many failed embryo transfers and many miscarriages on that journey. On about the 8th cycle of IVF, they did some further investigation, and they did find that I had endometriosis, which they subsequently removed. And then I had a really significant egg collection. So up until that point, I had only been able to collect maybe 5 or 7 eggs, which they had thought was due to my age and was diminishing with age. And then the quality of those eggs was not great, hence the failed embryo transfers and miscarriages. But after having the endometriosis removed and a lot of things that I was doing to help support my journey, I then had an egg collection of 17, which was
That's amazing. Is it? Yeah, that's yes. I was really astonished when I read that.
cellular specialists, and they just said that was very rare, and you don't normally get that sort of jump. Now, no specialist will ever say that the correlation was endometriosis.
But you also did other things in between that. Yeah, the endometriosis, and then you had some real self-care going on. You would tell us about some of the things that you tried. It may or may not have helped.
Yeah, so along my journey, I did different things. I had an acupuncturist. I started seeing a naturopathic fertility specialist, which was amazing. I went to a number of health retreats as well. I had a lot of pre-pregnancy style massages. And I did a lot of yoga and meditation and mindfulness because with it taking 9 cycles, I think by the time I was pregnant and was able to hold Alice and have a successful pregnancy, I was 40 years of age. I worked so I had a going for 3 years. So I was extremely fatigued, yes, emotionally and physically. Hence the title of my book, A Powerful Mind.
I wanted to get to that, what that is. So you had to really hone in on that, being positive and just the mind's body well-being, which you did with yoga, with the retreats. You describe the IVF journey as an emotional roller coaster, which I can't even imagine. What was it like? You were working full-time.
Yeah.
Nathaniel was working full-time. So set this stage for us, Stephanie. You didn't even tell many of the coworkers or anyone, did you, that you were going through this process?
No.
I don't know if I could have kept a secret, to be honest with you. So what was it like there's a period called the 2-week period, which seems
The 2-week wait.
the 2-week wait, thank you, which seems like an excruciating time. So during that 2 weeks, you're waiting to find out if any of the eggs if they were successful. How did you get through that?
Yeah.
And what was that like getting the phone call?
Yeah. So if I just take a step back, I'll start with my career. So we had just moved back from Vietnam after getting married, and I had got a job in a very big financial institution in Melbourne, Australia, in a top 4 ASX listed company.
Wow.
And then, it was 2 years into that job where I ended up being there for 12 years. So the full journey of my IVF.
Really? So one job the entire time?
Yeah, no one organization, what time, but many different roles in that time. And so the IVF journey kicked off, but because we had this unexplained infertility, the specialist thought that I would be successful very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So initially she just suggested we do IUI, which is not full-blown IVF. It doesn't require collecting any eggs. It just requires you to have some stimulants to encourage pregnancy. And I was successful the first time of that process. And so we were both thinking, my husband and I, well, this would be easy, that we've been worried about all this time.
Yeah.
And then the 2-week wait. So you have your stimulants, you have your injections, and then you wait for 2 weeks to see whether or not you're pregnant. And you're not allowed to take pregnancy tests because everything's all being manufactured inside of you, and so it can give false readings.
Okay.
And so I was successful at the 2-week wait, and so therefore I was pregnant. And then you progressively start having ultrasounds to check the viability of the baby. And it was about the 2nd or 3rd ultrasound, so somewhere around the 6th or 7th week mark, and they said the baby isn't growing. And
then that's basically you're already thinking you're pregnant.
yes,
And you're right in. You are pregnant. I know. But you're thinking, but say, okay, you're done. And you've seen the baby in the ultrasound.
yes, yeah. And then I subsequently miscarried. So that was the very first miscarriage, and then. But I was working full time, as you say, and I was very ambitious as well. My career was very important to me. And what the specialist said to me after that point was, just get ready. You're going to have no control over how long this may take.
Yeah.
We hope that you will be pregnant quickly, but we are going to move on to full IVF post this, and it will take as long as it takes, and we'll just keep monitoring how you are going, physically and emotionally.
Amazing.
And really just try to keep your day-to-day as normal as possible. So it was due to that advice from my specialist, who was someone that I had known professionally before I started seeing her, that I decided to not tell work colleagues for a significant period of time. By the end of 4 years, I had to, because I was having so many miscarriages and appointments
To see that it's all on.
Yeah. So then I told a discreet few people that I needed to.
As you're sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, you're a fighter. That's you real and tenacious. I know what it's like to want a baby, and you really fought for it. You said something interesting. You didn't accept the offer of ongoing counseling support when you were going through IVF, and you said that that's something that you really regretted. Why did you regret it? Aside from obvious reasons, how would you advise folks out there who are embarking on this? A lot of us think we don't need help. We can do this on our own.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I was very ambitious career-wise.
Yes.
And so for me, I felt like
On this.
this is just, to be honest, I treated IVF and the process like project.
Yeah.
That just had deadlines, and I was just
Well, it's probably also how you got through it. It seemed to be. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I didn't feel, as I was going through it, I honestly didn't feel like I provided counseling. However, as it went on and on and on, there were definitely times I hit massive rush bottom again, and I started to have the extremes, especially with the number of hormones being injected into my body. After 3 years, that's a significant amount.
I can't imagine.
It's the hundreds and thousands of injections. So
Not by 10 tries, but how many? Yeah, over how many years?
So when I was successful with Alice on the 9th cycle, that was after 3 years.
Okay.
And then I had Ruby 2 years later, who was a frozen embryo from that very.
That's big.
Pitch. So she's technically a twin of Alice's.
Wow.
But she was born 2 years later, so
Suddenly,
the 10th cycle.
So that's really 5 years that you have been going through this. Was there a point when you thought, okay, this isn't happening? Did you have a plan B?
Yeah, so before they tested for the endometriosis, I think by then I might have had 5 or 6 miscarriages. I can't really remember and lose count.
Sure.
And so I hit rock bottom at the point when the specialist said you need to start thinking about donor eggs and surrogacy and other pathways. And up until that point, she had not had that conversation with us.
Because you were still hopeful at that point.
Yeah. And she also knew me, and she was just judging, I think, about how I was as a person. And so she would just give me as much information that I needed as they went, which was very, very helpful. But for me to then get to that point and think, if the specialist is even suggesting these other pathways. And while I was grateful, and I write this in the book, that I was very grateful that there were other pathways and options, I just, desperately had wanted, sort of equal levels, of course, with IVF, with our own eggs. And so I did start to explore. I looked at a lot of adoption agencies in particular. And
that's a process also. And that can take many years as well.
Yeah. So we were, very probably disillusioned by it, to be honest, about just what that involved. And also a lot of the agencies, you had to have not been doing IVF for 12 months before you went down the adoption.
Oh, interesting, because they wanted you to have that entire focus on that process.
Yeah, that's right. Or not pull out
because suddenly you're pregnant.
Yeah, or sure end up with 2 very...
And which often happens. I've heard a lot of stories of that. I'm sure you as well. That's right. The second a couple or a person pursues adoption, they become pregnant.
Yes. So as you're exploring that, to be honest, then that really just made me double down on my self-care and my health and my mind.
Yeah.
When I went off to more health retreats and doubled down on the fertility naturopath and just, just did everything I possibly could to put myself in as positive mind and health that I possibly could to be successful, and then you were.
Yeah. It's, as we all know, it's a very costly process. As you've mentioned several times, both you and your husband and family were working full time. So that wasn't really a factor for you. What would you advise folks out there who are possibly not in that fortunate position? What do you recommend?
I think I can't even imagine what it would be like to hit that crossroads. And I have heard so many people who have and heard their stories. And I just, it saddens me that a financial decision has to be reached to determine whether or not you can have a child. So to be honest, I don't really have advice for others.
Yeah.
Other than, even in my own situation, we were fortunate that we were a bit older and Snell and Shiner actually established, but even still, there's a significant cost. As in parents, that affected us personally as well. Like there were big decisions that we, had to take each and every time. But what I kept saying to my husband was, at the end of the day, if we are successful, we're never going to look back and go and think about how much our children cost us. And I'm living proof of that. As in today, I don't look at them and think, she cost us tens.
No, I'm sure you do. I mean, they all do. Kids are expensive. I have 4. It costs millions. Yeah. Speaking of the toll it takes, you and Nathaniel, let's not forget about him. Mm-hmm. You've said that he's was a calming presence in your life.
Yeah.
You guys must have a strong marriage because I could imagine that the toll that this could take, the stress, the emotions, the financial burden. How did you get through it? And once again, I'm going to ask you any words of wisdom to share with those couples out there that might be pursuing this road.
Yeah, I think it's tough for everyone. And again, all the advice that I'd had from specialists was if there's any cracks in your relationship, IVF will expose them.
That's so true, isn't it? Yeah.
So, but we have been together, we were together 8 years before we got married. So by the time we went down the IVF path, we'd been together about 12 years, 14 years. So, so I think that was a testament, to be honest, to how strong we were able to be in saying that it's really difficult, and you're both navigating something. And I write a chapter about this in the book. You're navigating something that you can never imagine navigating.
No.
And you're both experiencing grief and trauma and loss, my God, but in very different ways, because as human beings, we all deal with that in very different ways. And so he's much more introverted and quieter person than I. So, for him, he would more just sort of take himself away and, watch basketball and sport and could immerse himself in that. And for me, I needed to talk it out with people.
That was your process.
Friends, yeah. So that's when I started to open up more with a lot of close friends and family in particular, and then let some close colleagues in.
And I'm sure the book has to be very therapeutic also to write that.
Yeah.
And to really put down on paper, because you visited a psychologist. Mm-hmm. That was the opening of your book. And I think the doctor asked you if you'd like to talk about that. It seemed that it never occurred to you for that to even happen, that you unload that trauma a little bit, but it has to be very therapeutic.
Yeah, that's right. And so again, the presence of the psychologist 6 years after I'd actually had my first child by IVF was a very long time. Yeah. And when he put the question to me and he said, this was after a couple of sessions, and he said to me, I think you need to go back and revisit and talk to me about your IVF journey. And I said, why? And I know out the other side I'm redone. He said, I don't think you've ever dealt with it. And that opened Pandora's box. And so again, I write a chapter about that in the book, about it doesn't matter what grief and trauma you experience in life. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be the loss of children or going through IVF for infertility. It can be anything. If you don't, what I learned was if you never confront that or visit it, it will pop up in some way, shape, or form, somewhere as your life, yes, in a negative way. And for me, obviously, that was IVF. And so revisiting it through telling him my story, I then said to him, you've reminded me, the specialist had said to me on my last visit, you should go out there and inspire thousands of people with your story, because it really is, your journey really is phenomenal, and how strong and resilient and stoic you've been. And at the time she said that, I was just like, I'm so glad this is done and I never have to be back here again, and I never want to revisit it. So I sort of buried it. Is it? Just focused all day. And I focused on, the next phase, which was, postnatal. And
which was really difficult.
Very, very.
And Alice's birth was also very challenging.
Yeah.
Then the postnatal. So you had a lot going on, the exhaustion from all of those years.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest takeaway from that you learned from this IVF journey? About yourself.
That's the biggest one. The self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care. If you can't take the time out in your life to really care for yourself and put yourself in as best possible state, mind and body, then things are going to break down for sure in your life, no matter what is happening and what is going on. It's stressful, creeping, and then that affects your relationships, and and then you start to lose who you are and your sense of self. And so that was very profound for me, and that's why writing the book sort of burst that wide open. But it also made me realize actually these are brilliant resources for the million there are men and women out there who have or are thinking about navigating these similar journeys, whether it's through the adults book or the children's book. And if I can help others, and they might be able to realize some of these things earlier, than I did, and helped them along the way, then, I've made a significant impact.
You have made an impact, Stephanie, and we thank you for it. Question about, you confided in a few people about this journey. What advice would you have, recommendations would you have for friends, caregivers, siblings, spouses, to how they should approach and help a person going through the IVF journey?
Yeah. A lot of my messages about IVF are very akin to when someone's suffering mental health issues.
I did see a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
Researching this.
Yeah. And I know myself, when you've got friends or family members that you're often a bit too afraid to say anything or ask, and so you distract conversations all of the time, and you don't speak about the elephant in the room. Yeah, she was really awkward. And so it's why I wrote a chapter in the book as well about how friends and family and colleagues can help someone going through it, which is just ask them if they're okay.
Yeah, just a simple question.
And if someone feels that they want to open up and speak up, then you've provided a safe environment and place for them to do that, and then just listen. And if not, they won't speak. But don't ever stop asking someone each and every day and checking in on them. Are you okay?
No, that's great advice, because I think sometimes, as you said, people don't want to talk about the elephant in the room, and they feel awkward about asking. They don't want to uncall this, but yeah, anything you need, how are you? Yes, how's it going? Just simple, just being there for them. Well, this is great. Before we wrap up, what's next? Are we getting any more? I know you called it a series, so we're hoping that there are more sticky pineapples out there.
Well, at the moment, I'm really just focused on, marketing my books to the world, getting my books in the hands of as many, adults, women and children as possible.
Excellent.
And I hope everyone's excited about the Sticky Pineapple book series.
It's wonderful. So if you could go back and speak to yourself at the start of your journey, what would you say?
You got this, and just be brave.
Just be brave, and that you are. Stephanie, this was really a joy to speak with you. Thank you so much. The books are fantastic. Where can readers purchase each one of them and find out a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so I have a website, www.stickypineapple.com, which talks all about myself and what inspired me to write the books, as well as where to buy them. They're also available on 40,000 online channels, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, Walmart,
and the Isaac. Not to be missed. Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your stories, and your heart with us. Hope you have a wonderful time at the awards dinner. Congratulations on your awards. And thanks for joining us. This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak, live at 2026 Book Camp. Thank you. Keep on reading.